The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, New Productions, and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
Tastes just like candy.
Candy, 101 ways to make your love and your life sweeter. Who I am Candace Harper, lovecoach.com. I teach and inspire audacious intimacy to powerful, professional, grown women who want real relationships and seductive singlehoods. And I always say dating and relationships can be hard, but love is always easy. And I am coming to you live from roasty, toasty New York City. We are sweltering here, and I got back problems today, so you got to bear with me if I'm a little slow. As always, I have a special guest, so she's going to help me spice it up a little bit and keep it juicy.
Now you are either listening on
the TuneIn app, or perhaps you're in the garden and you're listening to armedradioglobal.com. And we're also now available on iHeartRadio. So if you have Alexa, you can ask for Candy. Maybe you're joining us live on Facebook. And if you are, hopefully my Facebook people will be tunneling in soon. You know that you can comment live and you can talk to us through the course of the show. And also, if you're on Facebook, don't forget to pop over to the Creative Love Collective and Armed Radio Global News and join those groups, because then you know everything that we're doing and you can keep up with us. And then finally, our call-in number. During the course of the show, you can call in, you can ask us questions, 1-800-508-5431. Like I said, I'm Candace Harper, Love Coach. My talent is conversation. My passion is personal growth. My purpose is to teach and inspire radical self-acceptance in myself and others so that we can all have our best possible love life. And tonight and every Monday, what this show is about, each week we have lively conversations about different topics relating to love and relationships. Sometimes we bring on special guests who I'm going to introduce you to my special guest very shortly. Sometimes we play games and have activities. Always we get a chance to laugh, to cry, or just learn something new. And that is why this is a conversation. We're not here to hand down a bunch of dating and relationship rules or rights and wrongs. We're not here to shame your current love life. Our only intention is to create audacious intimacy, seductive singlehoods, and healthy relationship. And tonight's show, we are continuing our ongoing series where I'll be partnering with other love coaches, relationship experts, and opinionated people about sex and intimacy. I'm calling it the Summer of Sexploration. And the goal of this show is to support you with releasing pain, trauma, and shame, to help you open up and create a new sexual story, to teach and inspire you to explore and seek out some healthy sexual pleasure in your love life. To that end, I have my lovely special guest all the way from the West Coast. We've been trying to work out all the technical issues and trying to get this right. Xanet Pailet. Am I saying your name right, Xanet, your last name?
Pailet.
Xanet Pailet. I love your name. Anyway, Xanet Pailet is a recovered New York City healthcare lawyer who lived in a sexless marriage for over 2 decades. After experiencing her own sexual healing and awakening in 2011, she transitioned her career into a full-time sex and intimacy coach, writer, blogger, and teacher. She works with individuals and couples to empower them around their sexuality and strengthen relationship and intimacy skills. Xanet is particularly passionate about working with women, men, and couples who are sexually disconnected. Through her work and the many tools that she offers, she helps them reclaim their pleasure and transform their relationships and their lives. And her new book, Living an Orgasmic Life, Heal Yourself and Awaken Your Pleasure, is available now on Amazon. Xanet is a certified somatica sex and intimacy coach, a sexological, I love that word, sexological body worker, a holistic pelvic care practitioner, and tantra educator. She is on the faculty of the Ecstatic Living Institute and the Somatica Institute, and teaches regularly at Good Vibrations in San Francisco. And she lives in beautiful and serene Marin County, California. Welcome, Xanet.
Thank you, Candy. So happy to have made it here.
Yes, I know, right? We went through all of our technical difficulties. We've been, in touch over the week, trying to make sure that you could be here and that we make it happen. And I'm glad that you rallied. Thank you. Thank you for being
thank
here.
you. Thanks. We both rallied.
Right. So tell the people some personal things about you so they can get related and know you a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, so many things, but I was just like a normal person, a lawyer in a marriage for 20 years, have 2 boys who are actually now adults. And I was living my life and things seemed to be going well. There was only one problem, which is that sex was really painful for me. And it was painful the very first time I had sex when I was 16. And it never got really any better. And because of that, after my second child was born and I was like, the ripe age of 31 or 32, I was like, I'm done. No more sex. I never really had any pleasure. And, sex just became a part of my life. And as our sex life fell apart, our intimacy fell apart as well. And we ended up sleeping in separate beds for like more than 15 years. Like, I'm embarrassed to say that.
Wow.
But it's really the truth. And I just figured that was the way it was supposed to be, honestly. Like my friends would talk about their great sex life and I would just be like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Orgasms, I have no idea what you're talking about. Yeah. That is not part of my life. Wow. But things changed.
Things changed amazingly. Like, tell us a little bit about that. Like, you made a complete,
a total shift. When I was getting out of the marriage, finally, we decided to separate. I kind of looked at myself and I was like, okay, you're like 49 years old and you want to be in another relationship. And can you imagine the OkCupid profile? Like, really awesome woman, smart, intelligent, fun, interesting, hates sex, will not have sex with you. Right? That wasn't gonna fly. And so it really caused me to like look inside of myself and really go deep down and just say like, what is going on? And I need to really, dig in and deal with my sexual issues. And that was the beginning of the journey of like, okay, like first it was awareness. Yep, there's a problem here. And I'm not afraid to deal with it anymore. Like I'm ready to do something about it. But it was hard to find help. Yeah. Because at that time, there weren't people like me doing this kind of work. Yeah.
Wow. See, I mean, here's the thing I always say. If you want to lose weight, go to someone who used to be fat. It's like, we go through these issues, and this is the reason that we become teachers, right? Because what we experience, and the fact that you overcame it and came through it. And I don't think you should be the slightest bit embarrassed about being in a sexless relationship or sleeping separate for 15 years, because I feel like that's so many people's experience out there.
I know. Right now, it is. Right? But there was a lot of shame around that, right? That shame and judgment, which is one of those things that hold us back from being able to express like our sexuality or even to be able to deal with it. Because I felt like I was broken. It was all my fault.
Yeah. Get it. I get it. Which is awesome. Which is why it's awesome that you're here, because I'm sure that there's so many people out there who feel that exact same thing. And so I read your book. And I loved it.
Thank you.
Definitely got so many breakthroughs out of it. So many interesting things. I don't want to no spoilers for the people out there. However, we are going to talk about some excerpts of the book. And, I put together some questions for you so that we can just kind of dig into the conversation. Are you ready? Are you ready to jump in?
I am ready to jump in.
Let me say hi really quick to some of the people who are on the Facebook Live. I have Penny and Sean and Lee, some of my favorites, and Jetty's here, and Mary Beth. People are on, so they're listening. You guys know that you can talk to us while we're asking these questions. And if you have any questions of your own for Xanet, by all means, right, Xanet? Like, ask
totally,
them
ask away.
Right? She can't see the feed, but I will share with her. And
actually, I can see the feed now.
You can? Oh, good. Awesome.
Yeah, once we went live, the feed popped up.
Oh, cool. Perfect. See, we're working out this technology thing. We got this. All right. So my first question, and, I think a lot of people know a little bit about this. You talk a lot in your book about, there's a whole section about tantra. I don't know if I'm saying that the right way. And I think a lot of people think that tantric sex, they associate that with like Sting and Trudy Styler. Like they have sort of a pop culture reference kind of what it is.
Yeah.
But not necessarily, a full understanding of what it is. And you explain it in your book. Can you talk a little bit about exactly what it is?
Yeah, and it's interesting because Tantra was like my doorway to sexual awakening and healing, and it's not everybody's, but it happened to be mine.
Yeah.
So, Tantra is really, at its heart, it's a spiritual practice. That's really what it is. And it's really ancient. It goes back centuries, right? It's not some sort of new, there is like a neo-urban tantra kind of thing, but it's really a very, very ancient spiritual practice that goes all the way back to the ancient Taoists and the ancient Chinese. Tantra means in the language Sanskrit, and Tantra was like an oral tradition, like a lot of other traditions. It was an oral tradition. There was really not much written about it. It means to weave.
Oh.
Right? And what are we weaving? Right? Well, in Tantra, we are weaving our physical body. We're weaving our energetic body because we're all made of energy. It's all around us. We are energy. We're weaving our emotional body, and we're connecting both to our partner, but not always. Yeah. And we're also connecting to like some sort of spiritual, there's no deity, right? It's just like having like a different type of experience. So tantric, when we practice Tantra, we use a lot of elements like breath and sound and movement to be able to really move sexual energy around our body.
So it's like an energy-centered spiritual...
Yes, it's like an energy center, spiritual, experience that people have because you're really connecting. There's a tremendous amount of resonance between two bodies. Like if you think of two different tuning forks, right? Like when those tuning forks actually meet each other, everybody's moving together, breathing together. And since we're all made out of energy, like seriously, you want to try an experiment to feel energy?
Yes.
Okay, cool. This is such a cool thing to do. You guys should do it with us, right? Because everybody looks at me, they're like, energy? What's energy? So take your hands,
you guys do it too.
Right? Okay. Take your hands and rub them together really, really hard.
Okay.
Like this, like you're making fire, right?
Okay.
Till your palms are really, really, really hot.
Which is not difficult because it's like 90 degrees in here.
Right? And then super slowly, you might do this with your eyes closed. Often we can connect with energy. Just like move your hands apart, maybe about 8 inches, 10 inches, right? And then focus your attention on the center of each palm. And imagine that you're like holding like a small little football, right? Like those styrofoam little footballs. Yeah? And then begin to start to move your palms together. Try to move your palms together. And notice that you're feeling some resistance.
Yeah.
Right?
I do feel a little resistance.
Right? And then try to move them apart.
And now I'm feeling it that way.
Also feel resistance, right?
Yeah.
So you're playing with energy.
I love it.
So we're made of energy. Energy is all around us. And in Tantra, we work with this energy. So you can imagine if you have that sort of like, you felt sort of that resistance. Yeah. If you had that with a partner between your two bodies as you were just like holding each other or looking in each other's eyes, like there's a tension there, right? And that's part of the juiciness of what tantric sex can be like, right? Really like working with that energy. And the more we get comfortable with it, we can start breathing with a partner, and we just start to build it up in our body.
Yeah.
Isn't that cool?
It sounds amazing.
Right?
I'll tell you. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
I often tell people, like, just imagine that your hands are made of energy, and as you're touching your partner, just imagine that there's like an electrical circuit running through your fingertips, which actually there is, as you're touching your partner, right? That enhances everybody's sensation.
Yeah. I also think that it's such a good, I mean, just in your description, because I've never actually done it, it sounds like such a good tool for presence. And that's like my thing right now when it comes to sexuality. The whole reason that I'm doing this series is obviously because I'm on my own journey and I want to bring people along with me, right? So the one thing that I'm really conscious of or paying attention to right now is this idea of just really finding presence with other people. Right. And then also in a sexual relationship, just really being able to create, like, I know in my next sexual relationship, that presence thing is going to be so important. So the fact that you're introducing this to me, it sounds like it's perfect timing. It's exactly the thing. I feel like we're in such a porn pop culture space, culturally, sexually. I think a lot of times we have our techniques and our tips and our tricks and things that we go to, but that idea of actually connecting to someone and actually feeling them on a spiritual level, to me, is so fascinating. And I haven't had it happen yet, but I'm working on it.
Yay, I'm going to hold that for you.
Good. I appreciate that.
Can I say one more thing about Tantra that I think is really, I think why one of the reasons it's so important is that there are a couple of really important principles. And one of the principles are, like, presence is the number one principle. So you're already a tantrika. That's what they call Tantra practitioners, tantrikas. And one of the second elements is, like, losing the goal expectation, right? Like, just being really there in the experience and not caring about the orgasm.
Yeah.
Or whatever, not caring whether or not you have sex or intercourse, just like really being like on the journey and not worrying about the destination. And that's one of the things that makes Tantra so powerful, because you're able to really just stay with your partner wherever they are.
Oh, I love that.
Very juicy. Very juicy.
Right? And to me, it sounds like the epitome, the just the top of like what romantic love really is. Like just being able to just be with someone in that way. Yeah. It's exciting. It's already hot here. This conversation is not helping. So then the next part of that, which is very much tied into Tantra, is that you mentioned in the book about chakras. Now I've done a little bit of chakra work. I've read a little bit about it, but everybody who's listening doesn't necessarily know about it. Can you talk to us about chakras and how that intertwines with?
So remember I said that we're made out of energy?
Yeah.
Well, chakras are these energetic centers in our body. There's essentially 7 of them. In some, there may be a little bit more, but there are essentially 7 energetic centers. Mm-hmm. And you can imagine them. Here, let me show you my little chakra tool.
Okay.
You're going to totally laugh when I show you this. This is a vegetable steamer, right?
Yeah.
This is a vegetable steamer. So we think about chakras, they're spiral.
Oh, wow.
Right? So they're energy centers and they spin around.
Yes.
Right? And then they can be closed, meaning the energy isn't flowing into that chakra, or they can be open, meaning the energy is flowing up and down. And so imagine that there's like a central hollow tube, Candy, that runs from the very top of your head all the way to like your perineum, right? The area between your anus and your vulva, your vagina, right? And there are 7 energy centers, and they also are connected to a lot of our major organ systems. So the energy centers are like in the perineum or in the base. We call it the base chakra. That's the first chakra, and that's about grounding. Yeah. But it's also about stability and security, and like it's the survival place. right?
Wow. Yeah.
And then there are the lower chakras, which are our sexual centers. The second chakra is our sex organs, right? And that's about sexuality, and it's about creativity. And then our third chakra, I'm pointing to it right here, it's your solar plexus, right? Under your breastbone.
Yeah.
And that's our power center. So when that's open, we're feeling feminine, we're feeling wild, we're feeling powerful. And when it's closed, you know, maybe we're feeling anxious, we're feeling kind of shut down. So those are the lower chakras. And then we have upper chakras, the heart center, which is right here.
Mm-hmm.
The throat, which is really important because you've got to be able to speak your piece, speak your truth. This center right here, which is the sixth chakra, is your intuition, your inner knowing.
Yeah.
And then the seventh one is your connection to spirit.
Now, go ahead.
Yeah, and you can imagine the energy connecting between all of these centers, and that you can actually spiral it around. It's how we build up sexual energy in our body, and how we start connecting it both to our partner and also to like that spiritual place. The tantrikas call it like bliss. We're looking for a state of bliss, which is using our sexuality to connect to this higher spiritual place, which I know sounds really woo-woo. And it may not be for everybody, but it's kind of cool, right? It's kind of cool.
I think it's cool. I mean, because I love woo-woo things. And I think that if you're someone out there who's not very woo-woo and you're like, what the hell are they talking about? I do think it's worth it to just explore it a little bit. I mean, even if it's, you know, a little weird to you or, you know, whatever, I think it's worthwhile. I once did a root chakra meditation and had an orgasm. So I can
imagine that happening, right? For sure. Right.
And I am blown away by you using the vegetable steamer, because that is exactly how I envision the chakras working. And I never put the two together. Like, that's genius.
Yeah.
You use that as the visual aid. I think, like, what would you say is the way to, if I'm someone who has never done any sort of chakra work, what would you say is the way to sort of access beginning to like visualize your chakras and get into that space?
I think the way to start is to visualize this hollow tube, right? Because you want to look at a visual, the hollow tube that runs inside of your body. Yeah. And, you know, and start to do some breath work. Like, just start to breathe, you know, as deeply as you can into your body, like from your mouth all the way down to your pelvic bowl, for both men and women, right? And start to, you know, imagine that this breath is actually starting to connect with all of these centers in the body. Yeah. But I also want to say, like, let me take it out of the woo-woo a little bit, because there's a lot of use of this in the vernacular. For example, we talk about having fire in our belly, right? Power center. Yeah. We talk about having butterflies in our stomach. Yeah. Well, that's the opposite when that chakra is a little bit closed down, right? We talk about being a tight ass.
Yeah.
Tight root chakra, right? Yeah. You know, holding on to money, holding on to people because we're not secure. So it's actually it's really actually in our vernacular as well. There's a great, obviously my book is great, but there are some great books on chakras. And sometimes I just suggest to a client, the different chakras have different colors, which is all talked about in the book. But sometimes I just say, like, pick a chakra. Usually I suggest the third one, which is the fire chakra. And just breathe into that space and see if you can start to visualize the color yellow. Yeah. Visualize the feeling of a fire, right? Because, you know, visualization is very, very powerful, and energy follows intent. Yeah. And that's a big piece that people don't understand. How do I access energy? Well, honestly, you just have to start to intend to feel the energy, and you will often start to feel it.
Right? It's like our personal magic.
It's a little bit of personal magic. We have a lot of that in our body. Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
I totally agree. I'm a big believer in visualization. I'm a big believer in like you said, intention and just putting your word on things. And I agree. Like, just the declaration that you want to explore something will bring it.
Absolutely.
So for those of you, anyone out there who's like, I don't know about this, just try it. You never know, right? So then I also want to talk about, like in chapter 11 of your book, you talk about reigniting a shrinking libido. And I know that that's an issue that probably more women deal with than men. And you do talk about like a lot of the reasons. What I wanted to ask you is to talk about the things that kill libido, like for women in particular. And this is also for men out there who, you know, are maybe married or maybe in relationships and you're wondering what happened. Or anybody who's out there in a relationship who's just not feeling it and can't find it. I've been in a relationship where it went away. So I get it, but I want you to talk about that a little bit. Like what's the libido killers?
There are so many, unfortunately, libido killers, but like a big, huge libido killer for women is feeling emotionally disconnected from their partner.
Totally.
Right? So
Absolutely.
many women like need that emotional connection to be able to want to be with a partner sexually. Yeah. Right? And if you're angry and you're pissed, you know, if there's a lot of resentment and you're just feeling like he's in one place, or I don't want to say because not everybody's like they're in one place and you're in the other, like you just don't have a sex drive, right? That's a big killer for women. Much more so for women, I think, than for many men. Stress. Stress is the number one libido killer for everyone, right? Like stress just depresses our whole nervous system and makes it really hard for us to get like activated. And, you know, that's a big, huge issue for killing libidos. Yeah. Very often what kills a libido is, not getting what you want.
Like that, you mean physically, like in the actual sex act?
Yeah, or not even understanding what are the pieces that really turn you on during sex, right? I think in the book I talk about a core erotic theme, right? Which is like, what are the fantasies and what are the desires? Like, and underlying that is what emotion do you want to get for sex? So that definitely kills a libido. Yeah. Not being touched the way you want to be touched. Yeah. Right? Like, you know,
that'll do it.
That'll do it really quickly. Like, I always say to women, well, sex is only okay, right? It's not so much fun if you're not getting a lot of pleasure. Performance pressure is a huge libido killer. Oh man, if I gotta feel like I gotta either have that orgasm or fake that orgasm. Yeah. Right? And for men, that's a huge, for many men, performance is a big issue, right? They feel so much pressure, both to be able to like stay hard and also to be able to get their partner off.
Yeah. No, it's true. I think, and also after you've been with someone for a while, I think men are more susceptible, you know, obviously erectile dysfunction and things like that come into play.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, I think those are like some of the major pieces. I think that for women, you know, this is across the board for everybody. Underlying all of this is shame.
I totally agree with that. Yeah. Talk a little bit about that, because I feel like that's something we all in our own little way. And sometimes I think we feel it and we're behaving out of a sense of shame without even realizing that that's what it is. Like we think maybe it's, you know, because it's a wrong or right religiously, or because somebody told us, and we don't realize that it's our shame.
Yeah. I call it the nastiest 5-letter word.
Tell me more about
universe, right?
Yeah. Oh my God, is it ever?
I mean, we're born, you know, we're not born that way. We're born to enjoy, to have pleasure, right? Babies are touching themselves and cooing, and they're pretty orgasmic when they're happy, right? And it's then all of the social conditioning and the messages. I talk about our sexual blueprint, and that social conditioning and messages we get from very, very early on, like when you're a little kid and you start touching yourself and your hand gets slapped. Yeah. Right? Or you get caught masturbating, you know, when you're 7 or 8 years old, but you're like, oh my God, that's bad. Touching my body is bad, right? All of that is so ingrained in so much of our sexuality, and it holds us back from being able to like talk about sex, from being able to have great sex, from being able to like use our voice and moan and groan and scream, like all of that, that layer over that, that's all shame.
Yeah. And also, I think it touches back to what you were talking about before with gaining clarity on what it is you like and what you want. I mean, I think the reason that we don't, I mean, besides the fact that we're not generally taught to get clear about what you want sexually, but a big reason I think we don't think to seek it out is because there's like a little bit of embarrassment in, you know, I think especially when you're younger. I notice as I get older, I'm a little more free to say what I like, but I still have a little thing around it. Like, if I'm talking about what I want sexually, I get a little like, you know, a little bit like a third grader.
Yeah.
I'm a little silly about it. You know?
I know. And that's not uncommon. And I work with couples all the time and, you know, who have been married for 10, 15, 20 years who are like, wow, we still don't really talk about sex.
Yeah.
And I've never really told her what really turns me on. And this is after 15 years of marriage, right?
It's crazy.
It's crazy. It's totally crazy. So like my advice is like talk about it. You know, I sometimes I tell people just to, I like what Lee Schultz is saying. We have to learn to break through the old societal norms about sex being dirty. To me, dirty is good. Yes, Lee.
We love Lee. Lee's one of the Ask for Candy favorites.
Yeah, I'm with you. That is totally, absolutely 100% true.
Right. Amen to that.
Right. Amen to that for sure. So yeah, so like de-shamify. So much of the work that I do and you do is just like de-shamifying. Like, yeah, it's normal for a man to lose his erection. Yeah, it's normal for our vagina to feel dry. Yeah, like it's normal. Like all of that's normal.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with it. And it's normal to feel funny talking about sex with your partner or, you know, like that's just all part of what we have to do to help people feel like, yeah, it's okay to have these conversations.
Right. And even you mention it in your book. It's okay to have your predilections when you have two consenting adults or however many consenting adults you're into, like, it's okay to have our likes and dislikes. I think a lot of times the shame has to do with what we like. Like there's something wrong. You know, some people are into feet. Like, you know, so a lot of times we have a story that whatever it is we like is something that's weird or wrong or, you know, whatever.
No. Right.
Yeah.
That's definitely true. So embrace all of your fetishes.
Yes. all of your consensual adult fetishes.
Oh, embrace every single one of them and have an enjoyable, juicy sex life and get your needs met.
Yeah.
I think that's why our women's libidos, everybody's libidos are low, is because our needs are not actually getting met. You know, sometimes like, you know, I have examples of like, I think in the book I talked about a woman. This is very common. Like women are like attracted to throw them up against the wall and like have really hard sex with them. I'm not sure what language I can use on the show.
You can use whatever language.
13.
Go for it.
Right? Who just want to like fuck them really hard kind of thing. That's who they're attracted to. That's what they want. But they end up settling or marrying for the nice guy who like is going to be a great provider and a great father, and they have boring vanilla sex.
Yeah. Totally.
And you know, in truth, that guy probably wants to have sex like that, but he doesn't even feel like he has permission to do it. So much of the work I do is like, yes, like feel your cock energy, like feel your desire, right?
Yeah, and that it's okay.
And it's okay.
I was taught growing up, I think I mentioned this on the show before, I had two sisters, and I was taught growing up that male sexuality is like just disgusting. Like you're supposed to avoid it. Now I think it's great and I love it. But here's the thing about that too. If I'm a woman in a marriage where I married the nice guy, what am I going to do to inspire him to like, you know, unleash that?
Yeah. There's a lot of things you can do. The first thing is just like to talk about what you like.
Yeah.
You know, like, hey, I really love being tied up. Well, I've never tied anybody up before. Well, let's just try it.
Yeah.
You know, or go to a workshop. You're in New York City. There are classes all over.
That's
like,
true.
Go to a workshop. Go to a class. Do it together as a couple. Right? Explore it together as a couple. Or go work with a sex coach or whatever, right? Take a tantra class. Like, you have to just do it, right?
And even for those who are not in New York City, because there's a lot of people out there who aren't in cities or whatever, but you still have like the internet, right, where you can go and find out about things, and I don't know.
Yeah, and there are a lot of there are online classes that you can take. You know, I certainly work with couples all over on Skype. So, you know, it's a matter of like feeling that you have the comfort to be able to talk about what your desires are, what your fantasies are, because that's going to make sex really hot for you, and it's going to make the relationship more fun and more alive, and get everybody out of that, oh, we're just having vanilla missionary, you know, safe 10, 15-minute sex, which just isn't good for anyone.
Yeah. Like, I mean, practice safe sex, but safe sexual practices compared to practicing safe sex. Always use a condom, but you don't have to be safe about the choices that you make as long as you're both consenting, right?
That was a great, that was a great, great distinction.
Right? You don't want anyone, because someone will take the sound, sex. Right? Someone will take the sound clip, it'll be like, don't do safe sex. Yeah. We don't want people to misconstrue that. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. So, how would you, what would you advise for a couple who has lost their emotional connection, or lost their sort of, you know, intimate connection, or maybe never even had it? What would you say to them to begin fostering it between them? Like, what would, like, if they were to come to you as a coach, what's your first sort of?
Well, I mean, I teach them a lot of different practices. I teach them how to have conversations around like emotions, which, you know, for a lot of people, but especially for men, because they've been socialized not to talk about their emotions, is actually really challenging. But I have a beautiful practice that I teach, actually taken from the Tantra world, which I call creating sacred space. And it's essentially an opportunity to create a period of time, maybe it's 5 or 10 minutes, and actually like maybe on a special blanket and putting a bubble around
I read this in the book. I love this. I love this exercise in the book. Go ahead.
Right. Like creating this bubble and having like a special blanket that you use, and you sit across from each other. And you actually have an opportunity to have a little bit of an emotional connection without going back and forth. A lot of times what happens in relationship is we get defensive, right? Your partner says something and you can't hear it, and you get defensive, and then you never get to really be in the emotional space because you're just angry, you know, and defensive. And in this little practice, you know, we actually connect with each other emotionally by doing some simple things like we create this bubble around us. We have an intention, right? And that's a lot about what, to me, good sex is about. There's an intentionality around it. Not always. Sometimes it's great to have my partner just walk in the door, throw me against the bed, and fuck me hard. That's awesome. But a lot of times I like to be like, okay, let's set an intention on how we want to connect with each other. That's about being present, just like you said, right?
Yeah.
And then we might take things out of this bubble. You know, we might take it out individually. We don't get in a discussion. We might take out judgment. We might take out anger. We might take out being tired. Like anything that prevents us from really being in connection and present with our partner.
Yeah.
And then we might bring things in. Like, I want to maybe bring in playfulness.
Yeah.
Right? Or I want to bring in like a lot of love, or I want to bring in a lot of juiciness, or whatever it is, right? Like kind of emotional thing. And that's a good way to kind of clear the emotional space between you, right? So if you've had a fight, I would say, you know, and I'm going to take out the fight that we had this morning, you know, and if your in-laws are driving you crazy, like,
I love that, because I love, you can take that out, right?
Take that out, right? Take that out. And then there's some other practices where we honor each other in this little beautiful practice, which is in my book. We honor each other. We acknowledge each other. We might even give each other gifts.
Yeah.
And we also talk about if we know that we're going to have some sort of sexual encounter, we don't know what it is. We might talk about what our boundaries are.
Yeah.
Maybe my boundary is, man, like my boobs are really sore. I'm having my period. Can you not bite them tonight?
Right. Just
Right.
letting each other know what's up.
And what our desires are. Like,
Yeah.
what I'd love is if you would give me a massage before we start, having sex, and what our fears are. Because we always have fears. I'm afraid that, I'm not feeling really turned on and my libido's been low, or whatever it is, right? But these are communications. Leah saying that's sexploration. Yeah, it is.
Yes.
It's communicating about what needs to work for you in a sexual encounter. And sometimes it's hard to get in touch with our emotions. I have this isn't in the book, but with my clients, I have an emotion wheel. It's not mine. Somebody else came up with it. It's a super cool wheel. And it talks about the 5 basic emotions and then all of the iterations of those emotions. And so, and it gives you languaging, because a lot of people don't understand. They don't have words for emotions and for feelings.
Absolutely. And like you said, men in particular, like they're not really allowed to be thinking about what are the words for my emotions, right?
Right. And nobody maybe has modeled that for them growing up, right?
Yeah. But the one thing I wanted to touch on about the bubble exercise too, and I think a few of your exercises, what I love is the ritualistic element to it. Like, I don't think it goes back to being present and getting present, but I don't think we take enough time to like actually just set our goals and intentions together. And I think that what I really love about the bubble exercise, whether it's something that someone, a couple would want to take on every single time or not, I don't think it really matters. But I think just the willingness to do it every now and then, where you just, like you said, sit together on a blanket and say, like, I'm actually moving the day out of the way just so I can be here and be present for you. And this is what I'm thinking about, is you right in front of me. I love that.
Yeah, that makes such a huge difference. And that is like a component of Tantra. Tantra is about a lot of ritual.
Yeah.
And ritual is powerful. Ritual
Absolutely.
is, think about all the indigenous cultures. I mean, they had so many, everything was a ritual for them. Right? Rituals are powerful. It makes you present and grounded. And it makes you connected, and it makes it very intentional, and it takes it from the mundane to something different. I think I say this in the book, like Tantra is about bringing spirit into the bedroom.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah.
And here's the thing too, for all the people out there who are like, oh, ritual too woo woo, weddings are rituals. Like bar mitzvahs are rituals. Like there's, we do rituals already in our culture, in Western culture, a lot. And so these are just some Eastern rituals that can be applied in just the same way. It's what grounds us together and has us communicating on the same plane, or gets us connected, or gets our energies connected. It's all the same stuff.
Totally. And not only that, you can create your own rituals. Right? Yeah. Like if you don't want to do a slow ritual, like I see this couple at dance, and every time when they come, like they have this ritual that they do, and they're like connecting with each other, and they're jumping up and down, but it's a ritual. They do it every single time, right? So you can go crazy. You can have a hot ritual.
Right?
It's like still a ritual. Right, exactly.
A sexy ritual.
A sexy ritual.
So another concept that you have in the book that I definitely want us to touch on is your, you talk about your 3 sexual styles principle.
Right.
And so those are trance, partner engagement, and role play and fantasy. Role play and fantasy are together, right?
Yes, they are together.
So talk about these 3 styles and how they play a role in a healthy sexual relationship.
Yeah, so this is really interesting that we have these different sexual styles, because often one of the things that I help couples understand is that they actually like each other. They like each other. They want to have sex, but their sexual styles are so different, and they can't understand what's actually going on. And because their styles are different, they trigger each other during sex. So let's talk about a trance style, right? So people who have a primary style of trance tend to like to keep their eyes closed and go inside of their body, inside of themselves during sex, in order to feel more connected to their own sensations. Right?
Yeah.
Because that's where you find yourself. That's where you find it. May be that you get super distracted when your eyes are open and you're not able to actually connect with your own sensation. And one of the problems that people have is they're in their heads. That's another libido issue. And they're not in their bodies, and therefore they're not actually connected to their sensation. Right? And it may be that your styles will differ during all of the sexual acts. But if you have a partner who's more interested, or her style is more partner engagement, there's somebody who wants to keep their eyes open and look at you during sex. Right? Because that's how they feel the connection.
Totally.
And if you're keeping your eyes closed and your partner is keeping your eyes open, a couple of things happen. Frequently, the person who's the partner engager feels like their partner is disconnected from them. That they're feeling abandoned, like you're not into this because your eyes are closed.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's a very common conflict that I see in relationships. That's one of the most common conflicts that we have. Partner engagers are typically more about emotion. Right. And sometimes, if we were to stereotype, and I don't like stereotyping, we would say that women tend to be more partner engagers and men more trance states. But that's not necessarily true. Like for me, I have to go inside of my body often, especially like when I'm in a very high state of arousal. But in the beginning of the sexual situation, I want to engage with my partner. Right? And so there are things that we can do, like if we're somebody that closes our eyes and our partner gets triggered because they think we're not there, our partner can just say, hey, open your eyes for a second. Or you can be more aware of that and just every once in a while, open your eyes and just take a sip of your partner. Right? Or maybe more using words. But, we have to understand these different sexual styles. And then the third one is role play fantasy. And that's just a completely different sexual style. That's I want to be like the naughty schoolgirl, and I want you to be the, the teacher kind of
teacher
grade.
with a ruler.
Exactly, right? And people who are into role play and fantasy as their sexual style. A lot of us like role play and fantasy and maybe play with it peripherally, but if it's your sexual style, then it's hard to be with somebody who really doesn't enjoy that. It may not work for you, long term. Maybe you can bring them along and you can teach them. It's super fun to be in role play. But, really understanding your sexual style is a key component to understanding sexual compatibility between you and your partner, or incompatibility that seemingly in the moment. So it's a good way to explore it.
I like the example that you give in the book. There's you were talking about a couple where I think the man in the couple was a trancer and the woman was one way or the other. I don't remember, but that through your coaching that they understood the give and take of compromising. Like the trans person would actually open their eyes every now and then to just let them know. Let their partner engagement partner know that they were there and they were present with them, and vice versa. And the partner engagement partner was maybe not gazing so hard into the eyes, and sort of it's the give and take of not forcing the compatibility, but causing the compatibility, right? It's not a lost cause because you're two different.
Totally not, and right? You can learn, right? So a lot of what I talk about in the book is nobody teaches us how to have sex. Right. Yeah. And there's so much opportunity. There's so much we don't know, and there's so much we can learn. And you can learn how to play in each other's sexual styles. You can play with that as well, right? And go back and forth. That's part of the fun of
it all.
That is part of the fun of it all, right? Exactly.
Right.
But that's a cool element. And they're not static, right? They change. Right? That's the thing. You're not just stuck there. You can explore different things.
Yeah. I mean, I would definitely say that's true. That's exploration. I actually was more of a trancer at one point in my life. I'm much more of a partner engagement person now. And the role play fantasy thing, I feel like that I'm always ready to put on a costume. So I think you're right. Like, I think you can be whichever one you kind of choose at any given time, right? Like whatever you're comfortable with, unless you're trancing out of shame. Because I think that's a thing too. I think some people don't want to make eye contact and, kind of want to be disconnected because there's a little shame going on with that too.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really great point, right? Because keeping your eyes open and connecting with somebody while you're having sex, which is probably one of the most intimate things you can do in your life, is extraordinarily vulnerable, right? Yeah. And yes, there's definitely a lot of shame around that. And there's discomfort around that level of vulnerability of somebody really seeing you in that raw state. So yes, I agree. There are definitely women and men who I see who just keep their eyes closed, and you can just see they're like, eyes closed, let's just get this over kind of thing. It's like, no, that's not how we do this, right? Let's work through that discomfort first before we can really start enjoying sex. It's really hard to enjoy sex and have a juicy sex life when you have high levels of shame and you're uncomfortable being vulnerable.
I agree. I agree. So people out there, if nothing else, clean the slate. Whatever you need to do to clean that slate of shame so that you can have some really juicy pleasure. And you have to read this book. Where are we at? We're getting almost to the end. I do want you to touch on a little bit your section about masculinity and male sexuality. Just if you could just riff on that a little bit, because you have a really good section in the book. You got about a minute for our time. I'm trying to keep us to time.
So there's so much to talk about man and masculine sexuality. It's probably like my next book. But I think that, poor men, it's hard to be a man today. Yeah. There's a lot of pressure on men to perform. With the Me Too movement, which is awesome, there's a lot of pressure on men not to express their sexuality. A lot of men have issues around early ejaculation is a huge issue. It's probably the most common call that I get from men is men who ejaculate or have premature ejaculation, primarily because they're anxious. Often porn can play a role in it because men get so overstimulated with porn that when they're actually in a sexual situation, they can't contain their sexual energy. A lot of men are having erectile dysfunction issues, or I just call erection issues. And again, there's so much pressure to perform, and they just don't know what to do around their sexuality. Men's sexuality is hard, and a lot of men feel super disempowered. They feel disempowered by women. They feel disempowered in the workplace. There's a sense of male disempowerment and some female entitlement that men are experiencing it, and they don't express it. They do on some of the men boards, even the conscious men are really feeling that, and I feel it. I get it in the dating world, but they are talking to male therapists around I don't even know what to do anymore. Some men are just not even doing any dating. They're off, online because they're afraid they're going to get outed for something that they did 20 years ago when they did the only thing that they knew how to do, that they were taught, how to be more aggressive with a woman. So it's, I have so much sympathy and empathy for men. I think it's super hard to be a man in today's world and be a sexual being.
Yeah, no, I agree. And here's the thing about that too. I feel like, what's happening now is there's this sort of like you were saying with the Me Too movement and all that, there's this sort of tipping in the other direction. I think, since the women's movement and everything like that, which is great because equality is very important. I think what can happen is that, as a society, we tip too far in one direction or another. And it's finding that balance again, because I'm a big believer in our natural chemical biology and, men being able to express their sexual energy, women being able to express their sexual energy, and being able to be comfortable with what naturally, biologically comes through. And that doesn't mean, using it in a manipulative way or trying to hurt anyone or anything like that. But I think you're absolutely right that everybody should be able to feel safe expressing who they are in the appropriate places, right? Sexually or otherwise. We should all be able to feel safe. Like if I'm a man and I've got strong masculine energy, I should feel safe if my intention is to express who I am and not manipulate or hurt someone or try to overpower someone. And just like with a woman, I should be able to feel safe if my intention is, not to manipulate someone. So
absolutely.
Right? We have to be so careful not to like tip it in the other direction so that people feel suppressed. It's not fair for any of us to feel suppressed.
No, definitely
right?
not fair. I want to say, Lee, thank you.
Lee loves
you're
you.
great. I'm like, thank you for that.
Yeah. Aw, I love it. I love it when Lee loves the guest and the guests love Lee.
Awesome. I have no idea if I don't think I can write back, but I just wanted to say thank you.
Aw. So now here's the thing. I want to make sure we get this in. Your book, Living an Orgasmic Life, Heal yourself and awaken your pleasure. Everybody, the whole beginning of the book is really about healing sexual trauma. So if you have any trauma, anything that you want to look at or deal with before you get into finding your pleasure. Including shame. I mean, this is sort of like an all-in-one, stop and shop kind of book. You can heal it and then start finding the pleasure. That's what I really enjoyed about it. Xanet also offers one-on-one coaching on Skype or in person in the Bay Area and group coaching. And you can find her at www.powerofpleasure.com. We're almost out of time. You know that I have if you're a woman over 35 and you want to attract your soulmate, know that your purpose is not to partner. Partnership is for your purpose. I have the secret art of seductive singlehood. You can always get in touch with me and we can work together. And then the 3 ways to make your love life sweeter. Open up to healing any trauma, sexual or otherwise. Get committed to your sexual health and read Xanet's book. That's my 3 things for this week. And then lastly, Xanet, do you want to say anything to say goodbye? We have a couple more seconds for Armed Radio.
Awesome meeting all of you. Please go to Amazon.com, Living an Orgasmic Life, or to my website and pre-order that book so we can be #1 on Amazon and really take this message out into the world.
Awesome. I love it. So until next time, never forget that you are a love machine. If you ever start to feel like you aren't getting the love you need, just make more and ask for candy. So now our Armed Radio Global people are about to leave us. I just want